Warning: MF Uncensored contains adult language and discussion. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to MF Uncensored. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcast. You can also find more of our content on our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you find links to not only this show, but some of our other shows like the Multiverse Fancast and Cinematic Adventures. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me via the Zoom studio is certified peered specialist, Veroum Visan. Veroum, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having me.
I'm living the dream, man. And I know I asked how to pronounce your name and I still messed it up in the intro. So I'm going to apologize and we're going to move on.
You're good, man. You doubted yourself. That's all it was. You had it the first time.
I know, I know. And whenever I second guess, that's when I have to go back and edit. I mean, correct myself. I mean, not edit. But anyway, Verum, thank you so much.
Uncensored.
Uncensored, yes. I don't, it's funny. During our pre-show, he asked us, Verum asked us, asked us a little bit about our show. And, MF Uncensored really was not only the topical genre, like being uncensored and not holding back, it's also because I hate editing. So it's my excuse to not edit as much.
That's great. That's great. Editing's been a problem for me as well, so I
Oh,
understand.
yeah. And then suddenly now the video stuff, I can't. I just throw it all on YouTube and hope for the best at this point.
Fair enough.
But Verum, your story it's an interesting one. It's about resilience and transformation. And can you set the stage for our listeners and describe your journey thus far?
Oh man. I can give you bullet points because otherwise we'd be here all day. Yeah, thanks. So I come from a rocky background, a turbulent background, one that started as a promising young lad, and then there was sort of unfulfilled and we'll say unfulfilled and forgotten promises that I made to myself. And I kind of became lost and became a journey of finding myself, finding meaning, and it led me down a dark path into drug addiction. I'm not even gonna say drug addiction, just addiction and across the board. I mean,
Mhm.
name it, and I was addicted to it, and I I had a particular taste for opioids and heroin, and over 15 years of here and there, and then 10 years of active opioid addiction, I came out on the other end. And I mean, granted, there was a lot of catalysts that, really got me there, and they are saddening to say the least, but some people would call them rock bottoms. I don't necessarily believe in the traditional rock bottom. So catalyst is a better terminology, I think. And I come out on the other end as a peer specialist. I stumbled into this field that is at the very least adjacent to behavioral health and was able to give back. And 3 years I've been in that field, and I'm still a certified peer specialist, although now I'm back in sales because it makes more money. But I really liked that I was able to give back for a few years and sort of pay my dues. And yeah, and then now I'm kind of doing my own thing.
See, I love that, words have a lot of power to them and ideas have more power if you change the way that they sound. I I agree with you. Instead of calling rock bottom, because that's what a lot of people do. They say you got to hit rock bottom. Like
Hmm.
I always, dealing with my own personal issues, I always know there's more rock bottom. There's way more.
There's only one rock bottom, and it's 6 feet under.
Hmm.
That's why I believe what I said earlier about it's more of a myth. And I have a video that I have written, but it's not recorded, that I plan to release about that very topic.
Oh wow. I can't wait to hear it or see it. Hear it, see it, and read it. I
Both.
don't know.
Both.
All of it. But I do like the fact that changing the word into something like catalyst, it gives you the opportunity to grow from it. And it gives you almost like I want to say like a challenge. Like, a catalyst can mean anything. It can be something good, it can be something bad. It's all about how you respond to it. So what were
Right.
your initial steps to getting yourself back to where you were?
So initial steps were, I was still in the midst of it.
Mhm.
Initial steps, I was still in active addiction and thinking to myself how I wanted a different life, how I wanted to be better, and I knew that I deserved better and I could be better. I was the one holding myself back. That plus having this lifestyle brings you to do things you don't always want to do, right? And so I do have a criminal background, and I did do some jail time. I did do some court ordered rehab time. And those, I would say, are the initial steps.
Mhm.
There's this sort of deep psychology of acting out, and lowered inhibitions that are tied into sealing your deal, right? So I'm in the midst of drug addiction and I'm feeling all kinds of pity for myself and I'm miserable, feeling bad physically, emotionally, spiritually, just bad. And I'm using drugs to feel better.
Mhm.
I started doing crimes to get high, to pay for that habit. And somewhere deep down, I know that if I continue this, the law of averages is going to bring me closer and closer to getting caught. And somewhere deeper than that, I was like, okay, that's just going to be an exit. So go ahead, So that angel and devil, they're arguing, and the devil's like, yeah, just keep stealing, keep making money, in illegitimate ways. And then the angel's like, okay, do it then, because that's our exit out.
Mhm.
You're going to keep getting in trouble and you're going to get yourself in jail, and then you can get yourself out. So there was really some deep psychology with that, and I just explored it. I gambled it, and I kind of was cognizant of it, and those were the initial steps.
That's wild, man. That's like a hell of a story just to start our conversation.
Yeah.
Like, so you go to prison, unfortunately, and court ordered rehab. You get out. What were your first steps? Like, what did you have a plan? Did you have like an idea of what you wanted to do, or did you just happen to come upon something?
A lot of my life has been trial by fire,
Mm.
and just walking into it and winging it by the whim, whatever. I did have a plan though. I'm not gonna act like I didn't have a strategy, but I'm kind of an all or nothing guy where every time I would get out of jail, or I would be, another overused sort of cliche is clean slate, right? It's like the answer to your rock bottom is a clean slate. And every time that I would have this proverbial clean slate, it was like if I couldn't have it the way I really wanted it, it wasn't worth it to me. So yeah, and that's high expectations on yourself. And that ties back into the beginning of me saying I was a bright kid with a bright future that sort of sold myself short. And I know what I'm capable of deep down, and I know what my possibilities are. I know what my potential is. And so when I get out and I'm living in like a halfway house or a sober living house, I give myself some time to get it together. And if 6 months to a year go by and things are not even looking better, I give up, and I give up easily. And it's not about giving up, and it's not about throwing in the towel as a weakness per se. It's just that I know how to get by better as a drug addict criminal. And if I can't have my life the way that I want it, the way that I know that I can live it, I'm just going to wait for that. And that's sort of the attitude I had. And I say that because there was a lot of clean slates and there was a lot of tries, and it wasn't until the universe sort of forced my hand that I actually had to take it seriously. And this is a lesson to be learned, because if you hold high expectations on yourself, you're going to disappoint yourself.
Mhm.
And if that's the attitude you decide to have, you're going to continue to be disappointed over and over and over again. And I had every chance to take an exit, every chance to take an exit. And I chose to keep going down that highway. And then there was a pile up, and it was unavoidable at that point. And that pile up was 2017 for me.
Mhm.
Was if I have a rock bottom, it's that year. So that being said, that may or may not be uh a regular strategy or a healthy one per se, but that was my mindset coming out of jail or the sober living house. That was sort of the attitude I had every time.
Yeah. And now you're about 5 years sober, correct?
Pushing 6, yeah.
For you, man. That's awesome. So like, we've had a lot of people on, who've had similar challenges and tons of conversations, and you turn on the news and addiction is considered either some people say it's purely psychological, it's something that's wrong with you that you're using other things to cope. Other people are like it's completely like your body changes and then becomes dependent on these things. I always say it's a combination of both. Like you start doing something for something that's going on in your brain, like something's not right, and then suddenly your body becomes totally addicted to it. Like on a much lower level, if I go a week without a drink, I'm proud like proud of myself. Like, great job, you did a good job. Have a drink.
Right,
So
yeah.
I'm like, that's really respectful, man. 5 years, pushing 6. Good for you.
Thank you.
Did you have any challenges during the COVID time? Because I know in our household we were drinking more, we were doing other things that we probably wouldn't have been doing if we weren't so bored. But any issues for you there?
Well, once I was able to turn things around, I was able to build something of a support system, not a large one. I isolated myself through my years of addiction, so there weren't many people left. So luckily, I found a partner that makes me happy. And so, no, it's not probably the best. I'm not saying, I rely on this person, but that's just how it played out. I didn't even have those thoughts of maybe I should go party, maybe I should get high to get by or whatever, because I've completely turned it around and I have a completely different mindset. So, no, not really. I do believe in harm reduction. That's another strategy I suppose I could have mentioned, but it's something I didn't even know the term for until I worked in the field. And harm reduction is simple. It's just the act of doing better. It's the answer to abstinence. So I
Mhm.
don't know if you know, but for anybody listening that might not know, an example of harm reduction would be somebody who uses, I don't know, any drug. We'll just say heroin to keep it topical.
Mhm.
And they're a heroin user and they use a gram a day. I don't know, just using numbers here. And I'm their specialist, their peer specialist, and I'm talking to them and I'm like, hey man, I know you're not happy. How are we going to get out of this? I don't want to stop cold turkey. I'm going to do a half a gram. Okay. I'm going to start by saying, I'm going to start doing no more than a half a gram. Okay. That's your goal. This is about goal setting, and this is about proving to yourself that you can follow through on things that you promise yourself.
Mhm.
And it's about being better. Still not healthy to be doing a half a gram of heroin a day, but it's better than a gram of heroin a day. And that might be arguable. And people in AA and NA and those who endorse abstinence are going to argue, but abstinence just isn't for everybody. So that is the answer to it. At least, well, it is an answer to it. So I practiced harm reduction. I I used other medications to get off, marijuana being one of them. And I still use marijuana to this day, and I have no problem with it. It is not a gateway drug for me. It does not make me want to continue using more and more. And in fact, I only when I do smoke, I'll take a hit, literally a hit, and I do it a few days a week here and there. And that's it. Sort of comparable to you drinking, you go a week without drinking and you're like, all right. But just if you drink more than that, it's not a bad thing. If you're drinking every day and it becomes unmanageable, that's a problem. But if you're drinking multiple times a week and it's not an issue and it's okay and you're doing it sociably, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't believe there's anything wrong with using marijuana in that regard either. So the furthest thing I did was use marijuana during COVID, and any kind of craving at all was hushed by that.
Mhm.
Because it's not like cravings don't come ever. They do,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm like with marijuana, I don't use it myself just because of the nature of my work. If it's not allowed to be in my system at all. But I've never had a problem with it. And in all honesty, like I know people that actively, whether it's just CBD without the THC, or whether they do gummies or anything for stress relief or back pain. I have CBD oil upstairs that I'm totally allowed to use, and I love it for my back. Like
Mm-hmm.
marijuana got massively demonized, and that's a whole other podcast. That's a whole other
Oh yeah.
discussion to have. But anybody and it's like you said, you use it manageably in a way that only benefits and it's not hurting you or anybody else, then go for it. Like there's no harm in it. But I really like the idea of you setting tiny micro goals with people, because it's like you said, abstinence doesn't work for everybody, and that's why we did a whole episode once on why New Year's Eve goal resolutions are bullshit, because basically people will be like, I'm going to make $1 million this year, or I'm going to lose weight this year. And you're like, okay, how? Well,
Right.
and then they don't have a plan. And then when they don't
Okay.
get it, they're like, well, it doesn't work. But if I say, I'm going to save $50 a week to make X amount of money, suddenly I have something very manageable, something that I can do and do well. So I really like that. And you served as a certified peer specialist, helping people using this kind of strategy. How did you actually get to that role? Like, did you just show up somewhere and you're like, all right, I'm ready?
It's kind of funny. I didn't even know it existed, and I remember being in recovery and having counselors and therapists that are just so far removed, and there's a huge disconnect because the closest thing they have to lived experience is, oh, I grew up and my father was an alcoholic and it made me want to get into this field. Fair enough. And there's a place for people like that in the field. I'm not saying they don't like have a place. However, it's nice to be able to have somebody on that side of the fence that understands what I'm going through. That way, when they all are saying, "Oh, he's bullshitting," there can be one voice in the room that's like, "No, I know what he's going through. He's not bullshitting, and this is his perspective." And then they can, if they're taking them seriously, which that's a whole other discussion, but they take them seriously, and it really helps as it builds your support team. So I had a person that I knew, we'll just say for reasons, and I was meeting him to, I'll just be honest, I was getting some marijuana from him, and he told me what he did for a living, and I was like, "What is that?" And he says, "Well," and he explains it to me, and my mind just exploded. I was like, "Please tell me how I can sign up for this." I was in a transitional period when I moved out on my own and got my own place and kind of turned things around in 2017. I had a very toxic relationship with this old friend from like elementary school that we kind of met up, and it was just like, why not? Let's try this out, and it didn't work out. Very toxic. She ends up going back to her mother's house. I'm alone for the first time in forever, and the other transition was the first job that I had when I moved here was a factory job. And I don't have the best joints, and years of active addiction do not help that. So it was a lot of wrist movement in the machine that I was running, and it led to me getting carpal tunnel, and I ended up getting fired for an unjust reason, and I was able to get unemployment. And that for me, up until that point, I had worked to survive. I take the first job I can get. That's why I got stuck working restaurants. I hated it. When I was talking earlier about living the life I wanted to, that included not working at restaurants because, especially having a background, you're not allowed to be anything more than a manager.
Mhm.
You're not allowed to move up. There's no room for improvement. So you're stuck flipping burgers. And I know I'm better than that. Sorry, but I am. And it's a good job. It's a good starting job, but I'm not going to be stuck doing that for the rest of my life with no room to grow, is what I mean by that. And so I was working a factory job when I moved into town on my own. And this, for the first time for me, was a moment I could breathe. And I had already been practicing with harm reduction, making these little micro goals, proving to myself that I can do it if I put my mind to it. And I told myself, I'm going to use this 6 months. Unemployment gives you about 6 months worth of payments to live, and that's another reason she left, because it was significantly less than I was making at the job, and she couldn't leech off of me anymore. So it really kind of just was a perfect situation getting on unemployment. She leaves. I have time to think. I'm here talking with this associate of mine, and he's talking to me about his recovery, how he came to learn about it. He learned about it through his recovery he was in, through his counselor. She knew about it. She told him, and then it trickled down to me. So I said, okay, I'm going to sign up for this. State of Ohio provides this service free of charge. You can take these courses, get this certificate free of charge.
Wow.
You just there's some requirements. You have, you got to have like a year clean. Another requirement is you're allowed to have a criminal background, but there's disqualifying charges, which, like most places, are violent or sexual charges. And if you have those disqualifying charges, you're not eligible. I think even for that, you can, if it's been like 10 years or something extreme. Regardless, I was eligible and I used the 6 months to take the courses, because it took me about a month to 6 weeks to get it taken care of. And I used that 6 months to take the course and find a job, and was able to start working at the end of my unemployment, where I did not go a pay period without a paycheck, if that makes sense. Like,
Got
it was
yeah.
seamless. So it really was just an interesting transition, and sort of like the planets aligned. It's a really good way of putting it. And it was the first moment that I could really take a breath and make a smart decision for myself.
That's awesome, man. Like just the whole universe just kind of coming together in just the right way.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people think it happens like that, like just suddenly everything changes in 1 second. Like the fact that it was over a prolonged period of time, and like a lot of people would have gotten frustrated. Like you were saying before, you were at a point at one point you were like, if it wasn't fixed in a year or so, you went back to where you were, but like you trusted it, and that's awesome. Now, do you have at least one, and you don't have to give any names or details or anything like that, but at least one really good success story as a peer counselor?
I have a couple. I wish I had one that was just like a
The
home run story,
Yeah.
but there was one who, without naming any names, was at this job, this job, and I worked as a peer specialist. They had housing, transitional living is what it was.
Mhm.
And it was co-ed. I was the first peer specialist at that location, because they were a new branch of a different location. And so
Mhm.
I was the first peer specialist at this branch. So it was co-ed, and I was helping everybody. My schedule was really busy, and it really sucked because there was a lot of people that didn't take it seriously. So it's like I'm setting up all these appointments and taking it seriously, and very few are reciprocating, which
Mhm.
is fine, because that filters it out, and I
Yeah.
can
You
I
get
can
the
help the people who want it. Well, there was one shining star in all of that, and he ended up sort of being like my sidekick, where he was my man on the inside, telling people how I was helping him, how I was benefiting him, which I was getting him out looking for work. I was getting him to resources that helped him, because he had to do a fresh start himself. He needed a new birth certificate, social, all of that. I got him to the resources that helped him pay for all of that. So I really helped him kind of turn those things around and get some momentum. And then he sort of, word of mouth, spread the word, and I was able to bring in more people. And that story ends with him going on to take his peer specialist courses. Took some time, but he went on to, we kind of went our different ways. I went on to a different job. He went back to his hometown. But I learned through Facebook that he went and got his certificate, and that's the last I heard from him. But that to me is a success story.
That's awesome, man. And now you've been branching out a little bit more with blogging, podcasting, social media. Tell me a little bit about the shows and the stuff that you do.
Yeah. Well, I guess a major dream of mine has always been to do video production of some kind. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a movie director, and I have a hobby of writing. So I sort of, in all of this rediscovering myself, I allowed myself the space to be creative, and also learned that working in the field as a peer specialist, the mental health industry is not perfect, and corporate America gets in the way a lot. So this mixture of corporate America, what it is they only let you do so much. There's so many loopholes, and there's so many extra tasks that you have to take care of as a peer specialist. And there's limited face-to-face time. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think they should be allowing us to get as much face time as possible. Whereas instead, they're more concerned about notes, which is funding, and that's a whole other story. Like I said, we can talk about corporate America and the corrosion in the mental health industry. But regardless, I got to see that from the inside of it, and I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the solution,
Yep.
but I don't want to be a part of the corrosion. So this is my way of sort of doing things in an adjacent manner, in a parallel manner, where I can still help and provide, my experience, my perspective, and yeah, still be able to be creative in that way. That same place I just mentioned, that I helped that person in recovery.
Mhm.
That was the same place that I had a huge epiphany about my purpose in life, which was, long story short, I believe it's my purpose to provide perspective to people. I have a way with words, and I have a way with storytelling, that I think my purpose is to share perspective and help others see the bigger picture. So I'm bringing that to these projects.
That's awesome, man. And I like that. A lot of people they'll say like their gift is to change the world, or I like, perspective. It's something that everybody needs sometimes. And I really do enjoy that. And you have one of the best named shows of all time, one of my personal favorites, called The Odd I See. And
Yes.
for those of you guys who are wondering why I'm so excited about it, if you know me, you know I like good wordplay. So figure it out. You guys are all smart. But why don't you tell me a little bit about your show first? And then obviously you have your community and other projects that you're working on.
Sure. Thanks. The Odd I See, yeah, is a play on words, because my life has been an adventure. My life has been a journey. And I know that I am not unique. And I know that other people have had that similar experience where it's just felt like a journey. So we're here to sort of, it's almost like kicking back by, like, by fireside or something, and at a campsite or something like that. That's what I want the field to be like. And sort of, crossing paths on our adventures, and we cross paths at the same campsite. We're kicking back, telling stories, right? That's the feel I wanted to have, because with the perspective of it all, I want to provide a platform for people to share their story and share their experience. That's the shortest, sweetest version I can give you. I want to provide a platform for others to share their story and their experience, so that they can, say their piece, get their point across, change the world, network, whatever their purpose is. I just want to provide a platform for these interesting stories. And, the sort of asterisk there is all walks of life are welcome. I want differing opinions. I really like when I have an episode with, a life coach. The next episode is a comedian. The next episode is a paranormal investigator. And we're hitting, from all different cylinders. And to me, that is the greatest joy of being able to look back in a month's time and be like, I just spoke with 8 different people, 2 per week, and so different, such a variety of perspective. So I want my show to be an extension of myself. I want my show to provide that perspective on the bigger macro scale, whereas I can only do so much as one person. So hopefully by inviting others with unique stories themselves, we can accomplish that.
And speaking of a community, you have one, the Vagabard community. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
I can tell you that it is still in its infancy. So if people are actively looking for it and they're like, where is it? Well, find me on Facebook because that's where we're gathering. I have a Facebook group and my name's Veroum on Facebook. So the Vagabard community is all about being a creative wandering spirit. I like wordplay too, and I combine 2 of my favorite words. Vagabard is vagabond and bard. I mean, it's the creative wandering spirit. I know that it's something that can relate to everybody, some more than others. And so I invite people who have that, that spirit within them to join the party. This is, and for somebody like that, it would be ignorant to say, this is your home, because the whole aspect is these are the people that don't feel like they have a home. These are people always on the move who always feel like they're on to bigger and better things, right? So I don't want it to feel like home per se. I want it to feel like a gathering space that is common and you can talk to like-minded people. We can be open-minded and have dialogue without ripping each other's throats out. And, network, be creative, and have fun. That's what the whole Vagabard vision is about. And I guess it's also important that I acknowledge there's 3 main pillars there. And the Vagabond community, we're very strong we are very strong for standing behind mental health awareness, self-expression, and spirituality. So those 3 pillars alone should prove the point in a lot less words.
I love it, man. So we are getting towards the end of our time, but towards the end of our episodes, we love to play a little game. If you are interested, where I do rapid fire questions, I pick a couple of questions. I try and, cater them each time. And it's literally just I ask and you answer if you're interested in playing.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right. One word to describe your journey so far.
Man, interesting.
All right. I like it. Yeah, interesting. What is a book or movie that deeply resonates with you?
Man, I'm such a movie buff. There's so many to choose from. But honestly, it's been my favorite book for the longest time. I really like Shutter Island. I think the message behind that is awesome.
Such a good book. 5 points. That's awesome. I love that book. That book still to the end of till this day, I can reread it and still be surprised at the ending.
It's awesome. I love it.
What is one habit that changed your life?
Meditation.
Very nice. I like it. I'm a big fan of meditation. And last one, what's any advice that you give to someone who's beginning their recovery journey?
Baby steps.
Baby steps. I like that. Little micro goals. That's my favorite phrase, micro goals.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was awesome, man. Thank you so much for playing. And if anybody is interested, I know you mentioned Facebook, but where can people find your shows, your products, anything like that?
Also, so Veroum, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. And then at Vagabard, you can find me just about anywhere, I guess. TikTok. I'm on Clapper, which is fun. Yeah, those are the main ones. Oh, Vagabard on Instagram as well. That's right. So Veroum on Facebook and Twitter, Vagabard on TikTok, Clapper, and Instagram. Then our shows are on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's twitch.tv/Vasand. And we go live twice a week, Monday, Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are now in the editing process. We do the shows live and they're backlogged, and I am in the editing process. We will begin re-releasing them, the edited shorter versions, on YouTube, to be announced coming soon. But that will be /House Vasand. So that's not really it, that's still under, and then the website's under construction as well. So those are the two things we're working on right now. But you can find me at the others I mentioned. I'm active on all of that stuff. So
Awesome, man. But that is going to wrap us up. Thank you so much for coming on. This was fantastic. I really found it inspiring.
thank you, man. I appreciate the chance. Thanks for having me.
And if anybody who listened found some encouragement or inspiration from any of this, like there are a lot of people that make a lot of big changes to their lives. So it's not impossible. So if anybody's struggling,
Can I say one more thing that
absolutely.
I should have said when I was yeah, just a second ago. But I am, another thing that's under construction is we're working a more consolidated approach to coaching, and I'm trying to bring a more direct coaching approach to things. It is under construction. However, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you did find any of this stuff inspiring. I would gladly give you free consultations and work with you, especially because I'm not doing any coaching yet. I'm not going to have super high set prices and stuff like that. And this is sort of an experimental zone for me right now. So feel free to reach out, and I would be happy to talk about your recovery.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.